Good Monday and welcome into the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. I'm Chris Yow, joined by the Titan Insider himself, Terry McCormick. Terry, good Monday.
Yeah, Titans were able to pull out a comeback win, a walk-off win, if you will, on the Braden Narveson 46-yard field goal, and that on the heels of a 59-yarder as the Titans defeated the Seattle Seahawks. Now, whether Braden Narveson is going to be part of this team, that's in question, but certainly had his moment in the spotlight.
No doubt, no doubt. We're going to talk about him and a whole lot more. We've got a great show lined up for you. Turron Davenport of ESPN.com is going to join us here momentarily. We've also got an interview with Adam Caplan from Sirius XM Radio. So all of that is coming your way. And, of course, Stat Stuffers and the Stock Report indeed. So we're going to take a quick break. Stick around. You're not going to want to miss what's coming up here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast with Terry McCormick.
Being a part of a cooperative is being a part of something bigger. Farm Credit Mid-America is a customer-owned lender that specializes in agricultural financing for farm real estate, operating, and farm equipment. A unique benefit of being a part of the Farm Credit Mid-America Cooperative is our patronage program, which has put over $1 billion back in our customers' hands over the last 7 years. That's the power of a cooperative. Visit us at fcma.com to learn more.
I own the land.
I farm the land. Together we're farmers. This is our cooperative.
And we're back here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Chris Yow, joined by Terry McCormick, the Titan Insider. And also joining us in this segment is ESPN.com's Turron Davenport. Turron, thanks for joining us.
For sure, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Want to say this. Thanks for coming on, Turron. And, you know, there have been a lot of beat writers around the Titans over the years. But one thing I can say for Turron, if you want to go X's and O's and discuss the ins and outs of how football works, Turron is next level. He played some college football, so he's got a little bit more expertise than your average Joe that's on the beat. And we're going to delve into some of that with this segment, Chris. If you don't mind, I'll just lead off with a question right now. Turron, Brian Callahan said when he first got the job that he was going to tailor the offense. He was going to take what he's done in the past at Cincinnati, other places, and he was going to tailor that to Will Levis's skill set. What have you seen him do so far that has said, okay, we're tailoring this, and this is specific to Will Levis and what they're trying to do?
I think one of the things that really stands out is just how he is making such an effort to have Will Levis take that check down or take what the defense is giving them. And, you know, they're reading things still top down. So in other words, like deep pass down to like the deep route down to the check down. But that emphasis on taking that if it's there is something that I see different. And that's all part of that high completion percentage. You know, they want him to have a 65 to 70% completion percentage, which is really high. So that's the biggest thing. But also you see just making sure that those deep opportunities are there. How many times have you seen deep routes dialed up for Calvin Ridley? You know, you're seeing that a lot. And then the tight ends running seams too. So he's still putting in what Levis likes to do, but giving him a lot of options, whether it's Tyler Boyd, you know, running that crosser, or Traylon Burks running the slant, Tajay Spears and Pollard out of the backfield, you know, in their pony package. You're seeing all of that.
Turron, you know, that's one of the big things about Will Levis is a lot of folks thought coming out of college he made some poor decisions at the collegiate level, and was his decision-making going to get better at the professional level? And obviously last year he had some issues, but a lot of that was attributed to the offensive line. How has this offensive line and Will Levis, how have they found a way to be cohesive to this point before the start of the season?
Yeah, I think when you look at the offensive line and Levis, the first point of cohesion has to come between he and Lloyd Cushenberry. So that's something I want to continue to watch, like that communication, how they're able to, you know, make sure that they're making the calls and things like that. And I would say this, Levis is helping the offensive line too. Terry, you saw, you know, when in the joint practices, Devin Witherspoon, 21, he was coming off the edge multiple times. But you saw Levis start to go to the hard count. So now, that trying to read get that jump on the snap, now trying to read the snap count was tougher for him. So he couldn't get the same blitz. And a couple times, Tony Pollard picked him up. So you do have that. I think altogether, the line, especially that left side, outside of an occasional inside move that J.C. Latham is getting beaten by, I think they're doing a good job on that left side. The right side is starting to come along. We see more of who's going to be the starter, Dylan Radins and Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. And I will say that they've helped in the run game. That's where I've seen that their best blocking is in the run game.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. I think that's probably gotten them a leg up in the competition against the likes of Andrew Rupsich and Jalen Duncan, Leroy Watson, those guys.
Yeah.
I think it's their jobs to lose now. And going back to what you said as far as how Levis is helping, this offensive line, I think you're seeing him, as Turron kind of alluded to, taking the check down. He's also not afraid to take the hot read, when he sees the blitz coming. And then the other thing, too, don't underestimate, because Brian Callahan he went out of his way to praise Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard for their ability to pick up things in pass pro and take that blitzer on that's coming off the edge or up the middle. He went out of his way to say that they're two of the best backs that he's ever had in pass protection. So it's all going to have to work together, because we know this offensive line is still a work in progress. And it may not look like now what it will look like at the end of the year.
Yeah, it is definitely a work in progress. I'm glad you mentioned Spears and Pollard coming out of, pass pro, because that is an area it doesn't get notified, but or noticed rather, but it's major, And actually, that throw, to your point, that throw that Levis had to Calvin Ridley towards the end of Wednesday's practice that they didn't connect on, it was there. That doesn't happen if Tony Pollard doesn't stonewall Devin Weatherspoon on the nickel blitz.
Yeah, another thing about the whole Will Levis thing, I think the expectations for Will Levis, I think, are really all over the board, because you got some fans that are going, oh, he's going to be the greatest thing since Peyton Manning. You've got other fans who think that he's not going to get it. But I think the realistic part of it is this. I don't think we can expect Will Levis to come right out of the gate and look like a finished product the way C.J. Stroud did last year, or the way Justin Herbert did 4 or 5 years ago as a rookie for the Chargers. But I think what you want to see, if you're a Titans fan and you're following this team, I think you want to see progress from Will Levis throughout the course of the year. I'll give you an example. Last year, Jordan Love played I think it was a Monday night game against the Raiders, threw 3 interceptions, looked terrible. And I think, I know I questioned it. I think a lot of people did. Is this guy going to get it? Next time we saw him in prime time, it was on Thanksgiving Day against the Lions, and he went out there and carved up a team that reached the NFC championship game, and the Packers wound up making the playoffs, and he beat the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. I think, Jordan, and I realize that Jordan Love sat for 3 years, unlike Will Levis, but the trajectory of how much he improved over the course of the year, I think that you want to see something like that for Levis this year. You don't want to see him plateau the way, say, Kenny Pickett or Mac Jones did in their second year.
In my opinion, the best way to get better at playing football is playing football. You know what I mean? I firmly believe that it is the best way. So I think when you look at it, that is to be expected. Now, will it be the same trajectory to having the 49ers down by 3 touchdowns in the first half of an NFC championship game? I don't know, but you're right. That is something that you want to see. And it's something that I think the play calling is going to help, because it's one of the things that I asked about, how are they going to make sure that he's a distributor, the John Stockton, so to speak, because there's a lot of weapons on this team. And Bo Hardigree said, quite simply, it's the play calling. We're going to make sure that those players are dialed up to make sure that everybody gets involved, but also they're encouraging him to make sure that he just throws to the open person, instead of saying, D-Hop is down there somewhere. I'm going to find him, and he's just going to make it.
So you're saying to put it in a basketball vernacular, he needs to be John Stockton and doesn't need to be Allen Iverson and be the hero every play.
Yeah. Pass the ball, Kobe. Pass the ball.
There you go. Turron Davenport of ESPN.com joining us here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Turron, we want to give you a little bit of time to plug your work. What are you working on right now that folks need to be looking for?
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate that. So I got a story on Will Levis coming out. Just the way Brian Callahan has helped him as a play caller. That should be out this week at some point. You know, my editor has a way of just kind of rolling it out. I'll be like, oh.
There it goes.
This week at some point. So I got that. We got to talking with TD podcast that we do once a week. It drops on Wednesdays. So those are two of the things that we have going. Our whiteboard videos, they'll be coming. We're going to start that the regular season, you know, right before the Bears game. I got something that I'm looking forward to rolling out.
And we won't hold your weekly appearances with Jared Stillman against you.
Oh yeah. The TD Power Hour on 102.5 with Stillman. Actually, I'll be hosting this week, so you get 4 hours of me.
That's much better.
But not with Stillman.
Yeah, there you go. But TD, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. Before I go, Terry, I appreciate what you mentioned, you know, about the X's and O's. And I found out this morning, actually, one of the major influences on my knowledge of the game, Daryl Mason, excuse me. He passed away, man. He was one of my favorite offensive coordinators in college. So, you know, coach, rest in peace.
Prayers to him and his family.
Thank you.
Thanks, TD. All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, Terry, we've got Stat Stuffers and the Stock Report. So you guys stick around with us here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Be right back after this.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back into the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Time now for Stat Stuffers. Terry, who stuffed the stat box this week?
Oh, Jaquan Jackson continues to be Mr. Preseason for the Tennessee Titans among their receiving core. And while the veteran guys don't play a whole lot, the starters were held out Saturday night. Jaquan Jackson took that as another opportunity to help solidify a roster spot. 4 catches for 57 yards to lead the team, and then also a 19-yard punt return. So we're talking, or a kickoff return, I should say. So we're talking about a young man from Tulane, and it's interesting because in the post game, Mason Rudolph was talking about Jaquan Jackson. He said that when Jaquan Jackson was drafted, he texted Mason Rudolph and texted Will Levis and Malik Willis, all 3 quarterbacks, and asked if he could come over to their house, spend some time with them, and learn the offense from them firsthand. And Jaquan Jackson said he filled up about 20 notebooks worth of stuff. So Jaquan Jackson starting to pay off for him, and the study that he has put in is working out well.
Yeah, no question there. That's big. Look, I mean, showing that initiative is something that will not only get you noticed, but then on top of just showing the initiative, actually capitalizing on it. That's something that you got to be impressed with.
Oh, absolutely. And as we go more with stat stuffers here, Titans were 5 out of 15 on third down. That's not great, but that's good enough, I guess, in terms of what they were able to do Saturday night. I think they struggled on third downs really early in the game. Malik Willis talked about the penalties that they had that put them in a lot of third and long situations. Once they corrected that in the second half, looked a lot more efficient. So that's something to keep an eye out for this Sunday when they play the New Orleans Saints, to see if that third down efficiency can improve and get better, because I think that's one of the things of a Brian Callahan offense that is imperative, is being able to consistently, it's about explosive plays, but it's also about keeping the chains moving and keeping possession of the football. And that's going to be incumbent upon Will Levis and the offense when they're back out there to see how they do in converting those third downs.
There you go. All right, Terry, let's do a little up and down. Who looked good, who didn't look so good on the Titan stock report.
All righty, we've already mentioned Jaquan Jackson, so we'll leave him be as far as the stock report. We know that his stock is up. We're also going to go with David Martin Robinson. Now, that's not a name that many Titans fans were familiar with once camp started, but the big dual threat tight end from Temple University has come in as an undrafted. He had 3 catches for 38 yards. He's a big target. He can block, he can catch passes, and he can run with the football after he catches it, as you saw a couple of times there against the Seahawks. So a really good night for David Martin Robinson. He is pushing for a potential roster spot here, but it's going to be tough because there are 3 guys ahead of him at tight end in Josh Wiley, Chig Okonkwo, and Nick Vannett. And with 11, 3 wide being the base set, it's going to be hard for a 4th tight end to crack this 53-man roster. Probably would need to come through special teams if he's going to earn that spot. Another guy who I'll say whose stock is up is a guy that Brian Callahan praised the week before, and then we saw the fruits of his labor come to fruition Saturday night. That's Jalen Harrell. He had 2 sacks, including 1 strip sack that was against Sam Howell in the first half. A really good game for Jalen Harrell. And the good news with Arden Key coming back and not having to serve this suspension, that puts Arden back in the starting lineup. But if Jalen Harrell can come on, I don't see why he couldn't become the number 3 end, maybe even nose ahead of Rashad Weaver in that race.
I'll tell you, there was a question at one point about depth at the edge rusher, but once the news of Arden Key, and obviously that's the big story of the day, and we haven't even touched on that yet, but, all of a sudden with the emergence of Jalen Harrell and the return of Arden Key, the Titans look to be solid at the edge position versus a little worried about where that production was going to come from.
Yeah, I mean, that really is kind of how it's shaken out. Now, do I think Arden Key is sturdy enough to hold up down in and down out when he's been a situational pass rusher for most of his career? I'm not ready to go there yet, but having him back on the field in any capacity is certainly better than having him miss the first 6 games of the year. So to me, this is definitely a win-win. And if Jalen Harrell continues to emerge, you put him with Rashad Weaver, and then you look for a 5th guy from somewhere among Shane Ray and Caleb Murphy, some of those guys, then you're exactly right. You are sitting in a much better situation than you could have been to start the season.
Terry, we talked about him last week. We cannot not talk about him again. Chance Campbell looks like an absolute menace.
8 more tackles. He had 8 tackles the first week, 8 more. Played the entire game because they were thin at inside linebacker. Get this. The starters were announced as not playing.
Right.
Luke Gifford is hurt. Grant Wallow is hurt. Otis Reese suffered a concussion during the game. So it's basically Chance Campbell and James Williams the last men standing there at the linebacker position. And I'll go a step further. I like what I've seen out of James Williams, converted safety, coming in, learning the linebacker position on the fly at the NFL level. I think he has a real knack for finding the football. He's around. If you watch the defensive tape, go back and watch that game, you'll see a lot of 52 in and around the football, especially on running plays. So I think, they may have unearthed the gem there. It's going to take a little while for it to really be realized, but I think this kid's improving quite a bit.
Yeah, 6'4", 230, that's certainly linebacker size. So a natural probably fit for a guy who may have played strong safety and was used to coming up and stopping the run anyway. Just get him a little closer to the line of scrimmage. Now, obviously, your mind's got to work a little faster the closer you are to the line, but he certainly seems to be finding a way to make that work. Terry, as we talk about this defense, and obviously it's almost impossible to really get a grip on what this team is capable of. But when you're talking about playing almost virtually all second stringers for both teams, but as this defense has gone over the last couple of years with the issues they've had in the defensive secondary, it certainly appears that a lot of those questions are at least getting somewhat answered, maybe not to the point that Titans coaching staff would love, but it just feels like it's getting better, and better is always, better than it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing in terms of, you look at the starters back there in the secondary, if you just take the main 4 or 5, if you include nickelback Roger McCreary, they basically swapped out 60% of it. You've got Amani Hooker as the other holdover. Then we haven't seen very much of L'Jarius Sneed or Chidobe Awuzie, but those two guys are going to be your starting corners. Hooker's going to be at one safety. And it looks like Quandre Diggs, whom they just signed a little over a week ago, is going to be the other guy. Then you can bring in Jamal Adams for special packages. You can bring in McCreary as the nickel back. So you've got options, you've got versatility, and you've still got Elijah Molden to fill in if you need him to back there on the back end. So I really like where this secondary is going. I'm a little concerned about corner depth, Chris. I'm not going to lie. I think that once you get past McCreary, you got a lot of unproven, untested guys who have some potential. And I'm talking about Jarvis Brownlee, who I really like the best among all the young corners. I think that he's really got an instinct for the football and an instinct for the right technique to play as a man-to-man cover corner. I think Gabe Judy Lawley is making some strides. He would be a nice 5th or 6th corner, provided that he could cut his teeth on special teams and not be thrown to the wolves a lot, as long as the frontline guys stay healthy. And then you've got Trey Avery, who is, probably been passed up by Judy Lawley a little bit on the depth chart, the way it looks, the way they operated during the joint practices against the Seahawks. So it's going to be interesting to see who and which ones of those corners step forward here in this last preseason game among those young guys to decide that pecking order.
No question. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, Terry. When we come back, we've got Adam Caplan, interview with him from Sirius XM. So y'all stick around with us here. We'll be right back after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
This is Terry McCormick, and I'm here at Titans camp with longtime NFL reporter and insider Adam Caplan of Sirius XM NFL Radio. Adam, you and I met each other many years ago at the Combine, and struck up a friendship, and it's lasted for many years.
Terry, it's got to be around 20, maybe. I'm thinking early 2000s, mid 2000s, something like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd say that's
sure.
probably about right.
Yeah.
We've all seen here at Titans camp a lot of this offense and Will Levis. That's obviously the focus of what everybody wants. But you've been here for the joint practices with the Seahawks the last couple of days. Want to kind of get an outside perspective of what you think about Will Levis and this offense and what you saw the last couple of days.
So, Terry, Will Levis has a lot of ability. He's got everything you want: size, athleticism, arm strength. Just being around the team, I could tell like they just want more consistency. That's typical of a young quarterback who, by the way, is in his first full season as a starter. So you just got to let it develop. I think Rand Carthon had a good offseason to help them. Terry, us covering the team, they needed to really reshape their offense, add talent around Will, and they've done that. This is probably the most talent they've had in years on offense. The offensive line's been completely rebuilt. It needed to. So I think they're in a good space with him. He just got to play well. Look, this is a second-year, four-year deal. People have to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. But the cool thing is he's got a lot of ability, and I like the scheme, the West Coast system that they're playing in.
All right. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. You're familiar with Denard Wilson from his time with the Philadelphia Eagles, which is where you reside.
Yeah.
Denard Wilson's approach is very aggressive, very get after everything, blitz. He's probably going to use Jamal Adams a lot in that role coming over from Seattle. Sure. What do you see in Denard Wilson as a first-time coordinator that could make him a success?
Yeah, I think part of what you said is he's very aggressive. It's interesting. He comes from the Baltimore system, but he really comes from the Greg Williams system. And you guys know Greg Williams really well, who's a king of the blitz. I don't think it's going to be quite that high, the blitz percentage, Terry, but that's, as I understand it, talking to people who know Denard, that's a big part of the way he believes. And you look at when he was with Philly, not a high blitz percentage, but if you go to Baltimore, higher blitz percentage. So he's bringing an amalgamation of certain systems. And I agree with your assessment. I think he'll be very aggressive. And again, just like offense, they had to add, and they added on the back end where they got torched last season, the Titans did, and they'll be able to compete better. So this team's on the rise here. I think Rand Carthon and his group have done a nice job, and I'd feel optimistic for this team to be way better this season.
All right. Last question, about a 30-second answer here. How do you handicap the AFC South, a division that seemingly has improved a lot over the course of the last year or two?
It's so funny. 2 years ago, so the over-under for the Jaguars is 5.5 from the odds makers. Most of us like the under. The over-under total for the Texans was 5. Well, nobody got it right. So I think it's a very competitive division, the most competitive it's been in years. Still, the AFC North is the best in the NFL. The odds makers are picking the Titans to finish in fourth. I think they're somewhere around 7 or 8 wins. They have the start of their schedule is tough. I think that's something I'd be concerned about. But if Will Levis could play at a better than average level, they're going to hit 7 or 8 wins, because I think there's enough around Levis, and again, on offensive, defensive, in terms of talent, I think the coaching will be better. I think everything's on the up and up here, and I'm expecting them to be way more competitive this season.
Thanks for being with us.
You got it.
Terry, that was interesting stuff there from Adam Caplan. Always good to get some outside perspective, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He's as knowledgeable as anybody that covers this league, for certain.
All right, that's going to do it for the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. I'm Chris Yow. He's Terry McCormick. We'll be back next week on Monday to bring you more reaction from the weekend. So thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.